When the darkness engulfed the solar system, it changed everything as we know it. Cities were destroyed, planets were cleansed, and humans aboard colony ships were altered near the edge of the system. This cataclysmic event is known as the Collapse, and the only reason humanity lives on to tell the tale is because of the traveler's sacrifice. In time, we began to rebuild with the power of the light, and things were looking up. Land was reclaimed, civilians were brought back to safety, and things were going just alright. But many different sources throughout the first and second game stress the importance of defending this city and that the darkness is making its way back to Earth to take out humanity and the traveler for good. If we do nothing, the collapse will happen again, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video.
But the traveler had an enemy. A darkness which had hunted it for eons across the black gulfs of space. Centuries after our golden age began, this darkness found us. And that was the end of everything. But it was also a beginning.
Upon first stepping foot into the Destiny universe, you were immediately informed of this threat known as the Darkness and how we needed to stop it for good because it was going to return at some point. Now, while Bungie admitted they had no idea what the Darkness was in the first game, and while that's true, things are totally different and you can see that in Destiny 2 moving forward. We will see this dark force at some point, and they didn't completely throw that idea out the window. It was kind of always there from the start, they just didn't know what it was. So the collapse itself is known as the event when the darkness wiped out everything and almost made the human race extinct. The traveler sacrificed what it had left to save us, and that's kind of why we now huddle underneath it and build a city around it for protection. So things were going very well before the collapse. Starships were built, we were colonizing other planets like Europa and moons and stuff like that. And then the darkness arrived, the traveler pushed it back, but everything was basically lost and we were forced to start over. This time around though, things were a little bit different. The Guardians were created with the last breath of the Traveler and the Ghost as well, with the hope that this time around we can actually stop this threat. There won't be another collapse, and it is sort of our destiny to see this journey complete and to save the universe once and for all.
The darkness is coming back. We will not survive it this time.
Its armies surround us. The Fallen are just the beginning.
You must push back the darkness. Guardians are fighting on Earth and beyond. Join them. Your ghost will guide you. I only hope he chose wisely.
So a couple of weeks ago, we were able to visit the Queen's Court again, and things were a little bit different this time compared to the first time we visited her. On the left side there are these darkness ship holograms on the table. Mara is standing to the left instead of in her throne over there, and she has some new dialogue.
If it were up to me alone, I would have destroyed your traveler when I had the chance. But there are too many who fear what might thrive without it, and not enough who fear the wars that it seeks out so deliberately. Too much of a good thing will make you sick. Balance can come down to a single grain of sand. My people were born of calamity. Who knows what will awaken when it collapses again? Maybe only then will you understand. You may go.
So here she tells us she would have destroyed the Traveler when she had the chance. Now this is kind of interesting because things back when the darkness attacked were sort of similar. Mara and other humans were aboard a colony ship fleeing from the darkness, and it kind of caught up with them. Everyone on the ship or on the command deck was like, hey, let's go as far away from the city as we can, let's try to flee and escape whatever engulfed the space around this aircraft and maybe we'll live. But Mara had a different idea. Although back then on that ship she disliked the ideals of the Traveler much like she does now, she wanted to go back towards Earth and save her people, or at least try to. Not long after that, the people on board this ship were transported into the distributary and became the first Awoken, which we now know. So the point is, Mara, who's been on both sides, is alerting us on the power of our Traveler. She tells us that many people don't recognize the Traveler brings war. It seeks out these wars, and too many people are blinded by the fact that without it they might not survive, so they're willing to take the risk, I guess. Lastly, she says her people were born of calamity, or an event causing great destruction and often sudden damage or distress, a disaster. Here she's describing what I said before. The Awoken were born when the light and darkness collided outside of their ship. That's what they are. But she also implies the collapse will happen again, and who knows what will awaken when it does. So the first collapse was when the Golden Age ended and the darkness blanketed our system. Most of humanity died, cities and continents were destroyed, and things were not looking good. At this time, Rasputin was not capable of stopping the darkness, so he basically shut himself down and left people to die. The Traveler then sacrificed the last it had to push back the darkness and build the Golden Age once more, which we are currently in now. We obviously know the darkness is coming back, much like it did the first time. We've seen the cutscenes, the dreams, the holograms that Mara is analyzing. So why is this said collapse going to happen again, and how can it be stopped the next time around?
A side should always be taken, little light. Even if it's the wrong side. Too late returning. How many? Hold position, kill the engines, and don't let them find you.
The Exo Stranger, as lackluster as she was in Destiny 1, actually is searching for a way to stop the darkness. Now many things are, but in the case here on Venus, she mentions the Vex as an issue and her path is her own, suggesting she is working on something much more important. Now the Stranger here is obviously a part of some type of group who has some intel behind the scenes, as she communicates with them inside the Ishtar library here.
Yes, I'm listening. They are here. With me.
Who's she talking to?
Understood.
We also know the Stranger can time travel. This is nothing new, but it's been suggested that she's trying to find a timeline where the darkness doesn't win or where the Vex don't exist. If that's the case and she can jump all these timelines, why would she need our help? Now that's a question for another video, but the point is, the Stranger is trying to avert another collapse, much like Marasov mentions near her court. A second collapse is on its way, and who knows what might emerge when it arrives. Yet Marasov seems to know something that we don't, and it's kind of weird she wouldn't simply explain what the pyramid ship is on the table, right? Now it could be very early on and perhaps she doesn't even know what to make out of it, but I find it hard to believe considering the trickery she's pulled in the past. But regardless, Mara is a super important character in all this, and let's take a look at one of the cards from Forsaken's lore, which details how she's kind of tricked the whole Awoken race back in the Distributary. Let's take a look. No, Mara says with her heart in her throat, with trepidation bubbling in her gut. You cannot keep a secret buried like a vintage for so many centuries and then unbottle it without any ceremony. The boon I ask is for your forgiveness. Then she explains the truth. She tells Alice Lee what she did, about the choice Alice Lee would have made if Mara had not made her own first. It's only an extension of what Alice has already deduced. When she's finished, her ancient captain's jaw trembles. Her hand shakes, a keen slips between her clamped teeth. The oldest woman in the world conjures up all the grief she has ever felt, and it is still not enough to match Mara's crime. You're the devil, Alice Lee whispers. I remember in one of my old tongues, Mara means death. Oh, that's too perfect, that's too much. She laughs for a while. Mara closes her eyes and waits. You realize, Alice Lee says, breathing hard, that this is the worst thing ever done. Worse than stealing a few thousand people from heaven. Worse than that thing we fled before we were awoken. Please, Mara begs. Please don't say that. Alice Lee rises from her chair. I'll support your fleet, she says. I'll use every favor and connection I have to get your halls completed and through the gateway. And I will do it so I can hasten your departure from this world. I will do it out of hate for you. I will do it so that every good and great thing we achieve here will ever after be denied to you, you snake. No forgiveness. Do you understand me? It's unforgivable. Go, go. I'd be very glad if you didn't tell my mother, Mara says. Alice Lee hurls the pitcher of blackberry tea over Mara, turns and goes inside, leaving her to trudge wet and sticky but unbowed back to her ship. She leaves her tea-stained parasol on the deck, but when she remembers it and looks back, it is already gone. So here Mara reveals to Alice Lee that Lee wasn't the first, and Mara actually was. In short terms, Mara basically played her entire people and the system here in the Distributary to her advantage so she could rule the way she wanted. Mara's goal from the start was to return to the solar system and save the humans, which are their descendants. This is crazy to think about because the Awoken here could have been gods essentially. Mara could have made them immortal, they could have stayed in this beautiful place forever, but she had other plans, and this is why Alice Lee was so angry when she figured this out. Now, the Distributary itself is super powerful, and another cunning god is actually trying to gain access to it for her own agenda. But of course, that's a pretty big story and a good one for another video. In the end though, Mara will have a say when the second collapse arrive if the Guardians can't fend off the darkness this time around. Mara understands more than we can imagine, and with examples like betraying her entire race, who knows what could happen next. Anyway Guardians, that's all I got for today's video. Let me know down below what role you think Mara will have going forward, and will we be prepared when the darkness arrives the next time? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for some more awesome Destiny 2 news and entertainment. Also let me know down below what other mysteries you'd like to see in future videos, and I thank you very much for watching. Anyway, my name's Evade, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.
How do we find the Awoken?
They live all the way out at the edge of the darkness. Last place the light touches. Can't we just stay here with the murderous robots?
No. Little light.
Don't do that.